review of the Reventon yet, I suggest you do so because I had a pretty fantastic experience and there are some incredible positives about the vehicle. Obviously, 6.5 liter naturally aspirated V12 sounds absurd. 650 horsepower, 487 pound-feet of torque, and looks that make a fighter jet or a stealth bomber look dull. However, there are of course some downsides of the Reventon. So, first up, it's essentially the exact same car as a Murcielago. Now, the Murcielago cost $354,000 back when it came out. The LP640, that is, the car this is based on. It has the same motor, the same suspension setup, the same transmission, the same chassis. It drives the same, and it almost looks the same. Yes, we've got a more aggressive body kit, there's more carbon fiber, it's limited in its production, but is it worth 5 times more money? This car cost $1.5 million when it came out versus $354,000 for a Murcielago. Honestly, in my opinion, no it's not. We've got 10 more horsepower. The car weighs the same. Yes, it has a cooler instrument cluster and a revamped interior, but 5 times the money? Not really seeing the value there. And for those of you who have driven an LP640, know that it's a wide, wild car that looks really cool, sounds really cool. This is the same car. It's got all the same issues, it just costs 5 times more. Next up is the headroom. The seat only has one form of adjustment, and that's this manual slider to go back and forth. I'm only 5'11", and my head is crammed against the Alcantara roof. I have to either tilt my head back to the side like this, or scoot my butt forward and pretty much lay down in the most awkward position possible, which makes the already difficult to drive car even more challenging. Now, a lot of supercars do suffer from headroom and legroom issues, but the Reventon has the least amount of headroom of any car I've driven in my entire life. And I'm not making that up, seriously. If you're above about 5'10", driving the Reventon is going to be an extremely uncomfortable experience. Having your neck tilted to the side for 30 minutes or an hour when you take this out on a weekend drive is not going to make the experience very pleasurable. And that brings me to my next issue with the Reventon: the seats. These are the smallest and tightest bucket seats in the hip region that I've ever experienced. I'm a pretty average size individual, 5'11", 185 pounds, and I do not fit in these seats. Sure, it might be made for little Italian men, but they have to keep in mind that, well, those are the people designing and driving the cars at the factory. Those are not likely to be the people who will be buying the cars. The suspension setup is nice. The car rides well over bumps. It has minimal body roll through the turns, but having these seats that grip your hips in the weirdest place is really frustrating. Next, we have the transmission. This is an E-gear transmission that came in the Lamborghini Gallardo and the Murcielago, and it is the only transmission available on the $1.5 million Lamborghini Reventon. And I imagine the prices of these Reventons, had they come in a manual, would have skyrocketed instead of stayed relatively flat since they originally came out in 2007. The E-gear transmission is good at one thing: full throttle shifts at its 8,000 RPM redline. It bangs gears hard, throws you back into your seat, and creates a wild, dramatic experience. But at any other speed and circumstance, the transmission really isn't all that good. Now, we have different driving modes. We've got normal, sport, and slippery wet mode. I've got it in sport right now, which mitigates the problem a little bit. But let's say you give it 30% throttle and shift at 4,000 RPMs. The car sways back and forth, and then at low speeds, it's clunky. It doesn't really know what it wants to do. Let me demonstrate what I'm talking about, especially not in sport mode. Giving it about 25% gas, pulling the shift, and it rocks you back and forth like you're out on a small boat in rough seas. It sways you. This car would just be so much better with a different transmission. Last, and my absolute least favorite part of the Reventon, is the carbon fiber cover for the instrument cluster. Now, it looks really cool. The problem is, and this happens to a lot of cars that are very limited in production, they don't have the quantity, they don't have the R&D, they don't have the amount of people to figure out problems before they come into production. It's super reflective. If you're driving the Reventon on a sunny day, which is probably the only day you're ever going to drive a Reventon, and the sun is beaming down, it reflects off of this carbon fiber cover here. Now, it doesn't reflect straight into your eyes, but what it does is create a massive amount of glare and a reflection of the cover itself back into the window. And then you end up, instead of seeing the road around you, seeing this giant reflection of the actual carbon fiber cover. It's incredibly distracting, and I'm not sure how they didn't realize that when producing the car. Now, you could probably fix it with perhaps XPEL Stealth or some type of anti-glare film on the cover, but it hinders the driving experience quite a bit when you're just seeing this massive reflection in the windshield instead of the road ahead. Before we wrap up this video, I think I'm gonna shut up and let you listen to the sound of this 6.5 liter V12. Oh my God. See, that's the thing. There's some major downsides of the Reventon. Right now it's doing this glare problem. I'm looking into the sun and I don't even see the sun. I just see this carbon fiber cover in front of me. But at the end of the day, you're driving a fighter jet with a 650 horsepower V12. So does it really matter? In some regards, if you wanted to drive this often, yes, all of these add up as problems that take away from the driving experience. But for a weekend drive, you can get over it, and the Reventon is one of the most exciting cars I've ever driven. So with that, make sure to check out my full review on the Reventon to get some of the positives. I know what you guys are thinking. Who is this kid, and why is he judging this $2 million car with such criticism? Well, no car is perfect, and honestly, the Reventon has quite a bit of flaws. Alrighty, welcome to the Reventon.
Not a lot of headroom.
No, there's not.
I fit.
Like what?
Like, okay, here I fit, but here,
yeah.
if a cop came or like I had to order something,
yeah, like,
oh hell no.
This thing sounds so good.
Yeah, I was about to say, it sounds better than outside.
Does it?
Yeah. That's interesting. Outside, it just sounds like a Mercy / like fighter jet just coming up.
It has like characteristics of the Murcielago exhaust and the Aventador at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Wow. It's funny, it took a while for this car to grow on me. Like at first, it's a pretty hard car to drive, but once you get used to it, it's freaking fun.
It's insane.
It's insane. Wait, was that Alex? Alex is here! That's awesome.
That's great.
The biggest issue I have though is the Murcielago SV looks so damn good. Yeah. Like maybe better than this car. And you can get one for 400 grand instead of 1.5 to 2 million.
Sure.
Wow. Carbon ceramic brakes have a lot of confidence in them. But yeah, I mean, 335 Pirelli P0 Corsas definitely hook. Out of gas already. All right, another thing I hate about it, a little bonus, I really haven't driven that far, and I hit the reserve on the gas already. I mean, we've driven about 20 miles today. Yeah. I've driven this car 26 miles, and I am out of fuel.
And we filled up.
Wow.
So basically, you need a truck following you for gas.
If you can afford a $1.5 million Reventon, then you just bring the truck behind you with tires and gas, and you're all good. I think one of the best things of this whole day that he realized was this car says Gotham on the back. Obviously, it looks like a Batmobile. It's matte black. It's ridiculous. His car is the Joker. So we literally have the Joker and Batman next to each other.
Pretty much. This actually scared the shit out of me.
What do you mean?
Driving up behind me.
Really?
Like,
it just looks really scary?
Oh, hell yeah. Because it's like you turn a corner, you see it, and then it just keeps getting closer and closer and closer and closer, and then you like start seeing all the shapes and lines as like fighter jetish.
Yeah,
oh.
Dude, it's menacing. I hope you enjoyed the car. I mean, there's not much to not enjoy about it. Yeah. I gave 5 things, 5 pretty significant negatives to the car. It doesn't take away from the entire driving experience. It's still an incredible vehicle, but it's just, it looks so good and it sounds so good that I don't really care all that much.
Exactly.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like always, please browse the channel and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you next video.